Hey.
I'm back, guys. I'm back.
After you got that little D again, yeah.
Yes, I know. I had to show Lisa how to count down and then go live.
Forget
I
you,
wasn't
Lisa.
here last week, but I still watched.
I was like, oh, we already live.
I'm like,
My
I just
bad.
started laughing. She was like, Lisa was like, I can do that.
Apparently, I was not right.
Right. Well, welcome everybody to Water Cooler Wednesday. It's
Y'all know
another
what time it is.
right Water Cooler Wednesday. And today we have our special guest is Eric Johnson from Goosehead Insurance. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, ladies, how are you?
Hey,
Hey, EJ.
right. So we started talking, but y'all always know that I got my co-host on the side. She was the
and
host
you,
last
so
week.
you point to the wrong side this
I
time
did
because
too. Oh,
you
sure.
flip flopped us this week. There you go.
Jesus.
Here I
Hi.
am. Lisa
Lisa.
J in the house, house money mama from Nexa Mortgage, saying hey.
Hey. All right. So, Lisa and I, we sell lots of houses, and we commonly have this problem because we're in Chicago, right? So this week we want to talk about flood insurance versus this sewer backup insurance thing because everybody's like, well, I don't need any flood insurance because I'm not in a flood zone,
Right.
right? But in Chicago we have these wonderful sewer systems and people find that their basements are backing up, and so then when they go and try to get a claim for it, they can't, right, Eric? I mean, and people don't understand, and so what is this like? Okay, my basement is flooded. What type of insurance do I need if my to make sure that the stuff that's in my basement is covered?
Mhm.
And is there a type of I've heard a couple of different things. I've heard some people say that that's not something that you can really cover under insurance. So I don't even know if it is, but we did have several customers over this past season, because we got a lot of rain. After all
Yep.
that snow we had, then we still got a lot of rain and, stuff melting. Whatever happened, people getting a lot of flooding in their area. Then we had, the storms this past year. No, I'm out here in Downers Grove, and only maybe about 10 minutes away from me in Woodridge and close to
Mhm.
Naperville. It came through, but it still looks devastating over there. My sister lives like right around the corner from where part of the place where the tornado touched down, and you drive past there and you see people still don't have the roof on their house. You can literally see directly into the house. You know how you see model houses and there'd be
Yeah.
like furniture inside? That's how their houses look still right now. Everything is not even back, in its proper place just yet. But yeah, I've heard conflicting things about that. Like, is there even insurance for it?
Mhm. Absolutely. So today our discussion is going to revolve around what we call water coverage, or if there's some sort of water damage. And just remember that insurance is very specific. And then we have our local terms or common terms where if we walk in a basement and we've had a bad storm, and unbeknownst to us, we cut the light on, about to run to the dryer, your socks get wet, right? So we run
Mhm.
up, we tell everybody, man, my basement flooded. Or if you live in some type of hurricane area like New Orleans, Katrina, we're going back quite a bit of time. Katrina, what happened to Katrina, and then what happened while your socks was wet in the basement. The cause of that are two different things, but we use the term flooded or flood. So we can talk about today is, okay, we can call both of those a flood, you know, in the sense of the way we commonly use the term or the way customers may use the term, and we'll say flood caused by what? Because the insurance definition and the FEMA definition of a flood is not what a common customer would call a flood. So a flood is by FEMA or the National Flood Insurance Program, which is orchestrated by FEMA, is a very specific definition that really alludes to like a Katrina situation or some other mass flooding from that's you're actually in a flood zone. So that's specifically what insurance people or FEMA or the National Flood Insurance Program would define a flood as: a temporary or sudden covering of water or inundation of water over a 2-acre type of situation. That's flood. What we're talking about now, that's flood insurance, flood by the FEMA definition. And what we talk about and what you all were alluding to is typically the result of a water or sewer backup, meaning like in Chicago, something's blocked from the main, and then you have water bubble up through your pipe and backed up into your home, and then it hit your basement and it's all this sewage and nastiness, or your sump pump went out.
Right. Some
those are the most common situations that we see. Flood is but you know, for our point of discussion and maybe simplifying things, we're going to call both of those flood, but flood caused by what? Flood caused by water, sewer backup, or flood caused by like true flood conditions or flood causing conditions like a Katrina type of situation, a hurricane, a mudslide. In our areas in general, that type of situation doesn't happen often, even though in Chicago or in the Chicago area, and the one that jumps out to me is like Maywood and Bellwood, specifically Bellwood, where they're actually sit in the flood zone, or they have some areas out south where they're actually flood zones. So
Maywood and Bellwood are considered to be flood areas.
They have a flood zone and a flood area that goes through Maywood. I mean, through Bellwood for sure.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And you know, as a lender, specifically since we're talking to a realtor on the show and we have a lender on the show, most of the times another indicator is a lender, you correct me, Lisa, is not going to lend you money if they know you're in a flood zone, and they're going to require you to have flood insurance, right? Yep. So a lot of that, when you're talking about new purchases, that underwriting of that risk or exposure is going to be mandated by your lender. So
on every loan, we do something called a flood certification, a flood cert on every single loan, because we have to check whatever those maps are that they do. Yep. We have to check that and ensure that the property is not in a flood zone. If it is in a flood zone, then just like you said, flood insurance specifically is going to be required for that property.
Yep. So and the map that you're alluding to is managed and constructed by the federal government via FEMA, and that program or flood insurance is managed by the National Flood Insurance Program, which is sponsored by FEMA. There's flood maps, and in these maps there's zones, right? And everybody falls in the zone, but the zones go from, it's a bunch of different lettering from like A to Z, right? Mm-hmm. and that's based upon your risk, with the A being your most deadliest or imminent, and then you go on down and it becomes less imminent or less possible. And that doesn't mean that if you're in this zone, that if you're not in that flood zone, that doesn't mean that flood can't occur. It's just from a likelihood of statistics based upon what has happened in the past. But for the most part, that policy is a standalone policy. It's not endorsable, meaning you can't add it on to your policy. Anybody can get it. But from a lending standpoint, or if you're doing a new purchase, it's mandated. Whereas the other one, and we'll talk about that later, the backup and sewer drain, is not automatically included, but it can be endorsed or add on to your policy. And we can talk about that further as we have more questions. So we're really doing with two situations: flood as a result of water backup, sewer drain, which is the most common one in our area, and the least common in this area would be the true flood situation, like Hurricane Katrina, mudslides, and that type of situation. And that's the
Right.
standalone policy.
And a lot of people get them confused because they're always like, well, I have flood insurance, or I don't have flood insurance, and so now there's nothing I can do. Or I called and I asked, did I have flood insurance, and they told me no. But
Yep.
they actually could possibly have a different type of insurance if they had opted in to
Mhm.
that other one, right?
So, yep. And so now let's talk about the most predominant situation that we're talking about. It's called. There's a lot of different, because I'm a broker, so meaning I don't just represent one company, and meaning I have 40 different companies. So I'm gonna speak in some level of generalities of multiple companies. Each company, some companies have percentages, some companies have actual dollar amounts, but most commonly you're gonna have a dollar amount. And so what happens is really the responsibility of the agent as they're explaining you your risk and your exposures. And it's also the responsibility of the insured to hopefully listen. But when we're explaining this coverage, a water backup situation or that endorsement, it is a little bit more pricier. So that's a lot of the reasons why you'll see somebody just excluded. If there's a competitive situation where agents are competing against each other, sometimes they'll exclude it and won't actually. You're doing a customer a disservice and won't go over the coverage. But this coverage is endorsable, meaning it can be added on for an additional price, and it comes in denomination of like $5,000, $10,000, 15, 20, 25, and most companies cap it at about $50,000. Most companies won't exceed $50,000 of coverage in that, and that coverage specifically is for your personal property that are in that area, along with drywall and some other damages that can have. But it has to be talked about with your agent, and it has to be endorsed because it's not automatically included on most policies. It's excluded in the policy language, and so that's a very important conversation that you have with your insurance agent, or in that case, it could be your realtor. Dion's very versed on it. I know Lisa's versed definitely with the requirement of letting you know if you need flood insurance,
Yeah.
actual flood insurance.
So let's say if you have a situation where you just bought a home and you did not get the sewer and backup, the additional one, the one that you can get with the endorsement. Let's say you did not get that, but then you have very, very heavy rains, and there's a backup into your basement.
Yep.
It seems like it's a sewer because the scent. You're thinking it's probably from the sewer.
Yeah.
Is that something where you can talk to your agent about, or is that something where you just pretty much out of luck? Do you go to the city? Like, what would you do in a case like that?
And that. So are you speaking in a case where you can't add the coverage after the fact, and typically with both types of situations, true flood insurance and the endorsement with water backup and sewer and drain, there's a moratorium. I don't want to use the word moratorium, but there's a waiting period before the coverage kicks in. So you can't call your agent and in the midst of a flood or in the midst of a storm and say, hey, hurry up and add this coverage because it's going to be
right. It ain't looking good.
Yeah, it's coming. No, that has to be added. It's typically at least 30 days prior. And so, you can learn for the next time. And then another one where a lot of times we see problems that is after the fact. So for example, in my company, we have a quality control department that when we issue a policy, it actually goes through another set of eyes. And we're mandated per their rules to ask these water questions. And in addition to that, another set of a protective mechanism is put in place that when you sign off on your document, it's a portion on there that states, hey, my agent went over this with me, and I'm signing off that I don't want water coverage.
Okay.
Like we have that's mandated in our DocuSign. So you really need to have this conversation with your agent. But the other situation I find out is we got an unfinished basement, so it's just concrete down there, right? And it kind of makes sense that if there's nothing to be damaged down there, there's no drywall, there's no concrete, so I'm going to waive water and sewer and backup, right? But I've been in the property for 3.5 years. My wife is saying, hey, I want that basement finished. I want to put 2 bedrooms down there. Okay, you go and you put the work into it, but then most people are not thinking about it. They're not going to contact the agent and say, hey, my situation has changed. Before, I had a raw basement. If I get some backup, I can just mop it out, no damage. But now I got 2 bedrooms, I got furniture, I got this, I got that. I need to revisit that and have a conversation and endorse that policy for water backup.
So I have a question. Like you talked about like the different levels. So you said like 5,000, 10,000 is the max of 50,000.
Yeah.
How do people really know how much insurance they actually need? Because I could probably pick up 5,000, but now I need new carpeting and the drywall, the TV is messed up. Like, do you all give some kind of guidance as far as how much, coverage you should get?
Well, unfortunately, unlike coverage A or the dwelling, there's an actual calculator that generates replacement costs on your dwelling, which is your home, and then subsequently, based upon how much your dwelling is or your home, you'll get a coverage B, which is your personal property, your TVs and such, which is a percentage of that. So that's kind of figured out for you. But when it comes to the basement situation, it's one of those, how much, we ask a question, how much would you need that was all wiped away? So it's kind of a guesstimate to a certain degree. There is no real way, or there's no formula or calculator that we have that can tell you this. So if you got two couches down there, and you know that you spent about 2,000, and you got another TV for this, which in most situations your TV should be above ground level, right? Hung or something like that. And then the rest of it is drywall. So 25,000. I mean, you should be able to take care of that with 25 and under, or somewhere between that. But once again, it's completely their choice. Depending on the size of the basement, if somebody's lowballing it and saying 5,000, you'll ask and push back. But once again, some people are so price conscious, or actually just simply being cheap. You don't have to. They actually don't take the coverage, or think.
I prefer
frugal. We think
frugal. Yes.
So you must be one of those frugal people, then, Lisa. Right? Yeah. So, but then and the other thing that we all face as salespeople, people feel like sometimes they're trying to upsell them.
Yeah.
And really the amount of money that an agent makes off that is basically incidental. It's not significant. That increase. I just want to make sure you're taken care of, because I don't want you coming back blaming Dion or myself and saying, hey, I don't have enough. And I understand that customers can easily get confused, because we actually had a situation where the woman had water backup. She just didn't have enough, and she didn't understand why it wasn't being covered. Well, ma'am, your limit was eclipsed. You exhausted that limit. There is no more, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And notice that even if you notice it's all capped, because it's such a significant, is our company, has made us really have these conversations, because they know how significant the exposure is and how often it occurs. And it's one of those common things. Been in insurance for 20 years, 20 plus years now. It's a very common issue, very, very common issue. And it's also a very, very common issue for a person to say, oh, I don't need it. but then they're calling afterwards. And so the insurance companies really limit that exposure to water. And then also, you got to be careful when you're purchasing a home at different times. If that home has had a bunch of water losses, it may prohibit you from even getting that coverage in the future, even if it wasn't yours, because that home actually can have some latent defect that actually makes it more prone to that type of backup situation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's the underwriter in me, Lisa. I know you all are not fond of underwriters, but
that's bogus.
Right.
hey, that's just the way it is.
So that's very interesting, right? So you can have a couple of claims on the house, and then you selling your house, and now the buyers are able to get that same coverage, right?
Now, and that's specifically when we're talking about water backup. Now, the flood program, because flood is offered, predominantly through the government, even though there's some private flood carriers, which we have. You always can get the flood insurance, true flood insurance, no matter what, right? You can always get that you're not going to be prohibited from getting, but that coverage, because the part of the reason too, I don't want to get too deep into the underwriting of it, but it's the underwriting losses are taken on when you write through FEMA or the National Flood Insurance Program. The national government is subsidizing this, right? So that's a whole different ball game versus the insurance companies with the water backup. They're going to limit that exposure and say, hey, this is happening too much. You're either not eligible for that coverage at all. You're not eligible for us to write your policy at all, or we'll write the policy, but we're going to exclude it. So that's another thing that a customer on average is not going to be aware of, or don't know that those types of things can happen.
So if someone does live in a flood zone,
yes,
and they have flood insurance,
yes,
and their basement flooded for sewer backup, would they be covered?
No, because a flood policy based upon a flood zone. Remember, there are certain triggers in insurance. Is flood caused by what? If it wasn't caused by that, what they define it as is 2 acres and so much of this and caused by sudden winds and this that definition, that's water backup. Those are two different things. And so that you're not going to be able to go against your flood policy for water backup. Just like water backup is not going to cover a true in most situations, a true flood. Now, once again, in insurance, it's so specialized, right? You got underwriters on the front end, you got claims people on the back end, you got agents on the front end also, but these claim people are specifically licensed, trained to handle these situations. And one of the things as a salesperson and underwriter, I'm not trying to be evasive, but there's certain claim situations like what if this, what if that you need to lead to the expert to really determine. I can tell you the basic black and white, maybe a little gray how certain things happen, but it's also going to be determined on what that person sees with their eyes. And then, if you have an issue with that, you go through arbitration or some other type of independent adjusting type situation. But those are two separate situations. Flood caused by actual flood, defined definitions by FEMA, and what we see mostly is water backup, sewer and drain, or some type of situation like that.
Okay.
Wow. So
that's another reason why a lot nowadays you're seeing a lot of people. I can do it myself. I can go online and I can get this that, but they really don't understand it's a lot more involved than that. I mean, I need to be asking questions, or I need to make sure that the agent is actually taking time to explain certain circumstances for me and understanding what can or potentially can't happen, and not just being cheap or frugal. But I mean, hey, either pay now and minimize it, or have to come out a whole bunch of money later on.
Right.
So I'm more of a proponent of having appropriate coverage. And that's also like with the home warranties versus insurance and the combination of both, you know.
All right. Well, I mean, we have a few minutes left. Anyone has some questions about insurance and flood? We have with us Eric Johnson from Goosehead Insurance. If you need anything about insurance, he's able to help you. Today's topic, we're talking about flood insurance and flood insurance by what cause, right? Did I get that right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
right. So, because it could be, flood, normal flood, or it could be like sewer backup. So, definitely,
Yep.
give Eric a call. This is the time. We got a lot of rain that's been coming in. The weather's changing back again. So, we need to, you need to maybe think about, should I cover my basement? Right. So, a lot of times, maybe you're one of my past buyers. You didn't pick it up because, we're trying to get things going, but you didn't feel it was important. But now here we are. Let's give Eric a call. Let's come back and just pick up that sewer backup insurance so that we can make sure that we're covered, that you are covered. Let's see.
No
So,
questions. And see any questions today.
yeah, I was looking, I was like, oh, that's you. So,
All right.
but,
Well, thank you. That was very enlightening. I learned some stuff today. So thank you. I appreciate it. That definitely, cleared up a couple of things for me. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
We can find you some a responsibly priced coverage, Lisa, for the frugal people. We got a bunch of different areas you can find different situations,
Well, my frugal mind say, I don't know, I'm looking at your side eye.
Right.
I see quotes from you guys all the time. You're very, very competitive. Very competitive. Yep. So even for frugality. So yeah.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We like to come in, give you a quick 30 minutes of information. Make sure that we keep all our customers updated on what's going on. Yeah. If you are a real estate agent and you're looking to join a team, I am looking to build my team. So give me a call. I'd like for you to be on my team. So you can always message me about my team. About my team.
There you go.
So you got it. Right. They definitely want you there with me. So we thank you. Thank you guys for joining us. It was another great day. Water Cooler Wednesday. See you next week.
All right. Have a good one, y'all.